I'm Terre Rybovich, born and raised in West Palm Beach and now living in Homestead. And for the past 17 years, I've been making figurative drawings using my body as much as my hands. And more recently, my interest in birds has grown so much that I've decided to include them. So I draw birds based on photographs that I take myself. And during the pandemic, the birds have become an important symbol of, in part because I'm indoors and they're outdoors. There's a certain amount of envy there, but they just symbolize freedom in the purest form. And so I decided to amplify their voice and the effect that it's had on me, especially being cooped up indoors. But also, when you draw from a photograph, you have to grid both the photograph and the drawing, especially when you're taking a 4-inch bird and making it 4 feet tall. You do that by using a grid and just copying the grid directly. And so on top of the symbol of freedom, you're imposing this scientific geometric grid. And slowly the grid sort of came to the fore as the quarantine wore on. And so I started to elaborate, as you can see in this drawing, where the bird, I didn't finish the grid. The bird is partly there, but not entirely there. And so the grid speaks as well as the bird. So it's freedom, but freedom in a contained situation. The other drawings are also based on the grid, and they are figurative works. Like the other drawings, they're charcoal and pastel. In this case, it's powdered charcoal and powdered pastel mixed together and applied with a brush, and using imprints of my body to create the drawing, with the exception of this one, which is another straightforward charcoal and pastel drawing with birds. So what I gained from working not just with my hands but with my body is that when I start by covering the paper with charcoal, and then I lie down and imprint my body on it. And then I look at that imprint, and I literally spend as much time looking at a drawing as I do working on it with the charcoal or pastel. And that imprint tells me how the drawing wants to be finished. And in working in collaboration with the body's imprint, I make drawings that I feel like I could never have imagined working just with my hands and mind. So that is my method, and I'm very pleased to pass you along to Marina Font.
Hello, good evening everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Marina Font. I was born in Argentina and I moved to the States in 1996. I've been working in Miami since then, and I'm a photo-based artist. I've been working for 9 years now with the female body, and because the social and geographical atmosphere where you grew up at influenced a lot of my work. I grew up in a country that is very patriarchal and also very influenced by psychoanalysis, and especially by Freud writings. And I am questioning his views on the femininity and especially female sexuality, and his quotes on the female. One of the starting points for doing this body of work, it's a quote that he called women dark continent, and it's a term that he took from colonialism at the time, and it was applied to the continents that we knew very little about. So for this body of work, I photographed the female body in the position that you see in an anatomy book, kind of like a medical approach that psychoanalysis had back then in Vienna. And then through the act of embroidery, I aim to bring to the surface and to light things experienced and felt by the body. Isn't that materialization that it occurs in the topographic surface that I try to erase the boundaries between the internal and external body. So I use materials like embroidery thread and found fabrics, and then in some of the works, the materials that I use, I always try to connect them with the concept that I want to portray. And it's a mix of a yarn that it's a mix of cotton and hemp, which is for me this duality that women are, like the delicate and soft, but also like the strength that we women have in the world. So the work is approached by three major axes, and is biology, psychology, and the woman in society, and of course a juxtaposition between the three of them. And then in this last piece, I utilize vintage textiles and found textiles. That is the work that women been doing all over the years and past generations through generations, and very laborious and kind of in a meditative way. And I'm interested in the silent stories that they carry. And then those works were translated into the ceramic pieces that you see. I leave the imprint on the ceramics, and they become those untold stories and those like fossils of those histories that they were never passed on. So they become, some of them are fallen, and they become this foundation that we women have nowadays. So these are very large pieces, and they are human scale, but I work on different sizes, like from the size of a brick, that is what you use to build a home, to the real scale. And that's it for now, and now I'm going to introduce you to Renee Rey.
Hi, I'm Renee Rey. I grew up in upstate New York, and I lived in New York City and spent some time there, but I live down here in Southwest Florida. Over the past 24 years, I have worked with the figure. Over the past year, I've concentrated on the concept of transformation. And so with this opportunity, I created this triptych. And so the figures that I use have metamorphosized. They're ambiguous. Are they twins? Are they the same person? Are they otherworldly beings? Are they male? Are they female? I leave this question open, but at the same time, all the figures that I create are part of me. They're self-portraits. So I bring myself into the work. And this body of work started during this period of COVID. And there has been so much tumultuous things going on, not just with our health, but with the political situation, with the environment. And so all these emotions and feelings I've explored in this one piece. Materials that I use have also transformed. I've started as an oil painter mainly, and now this piece is acrylic oil, graphite, and I've used string and also branches that I foraged for out here in the Florida environment. So the importance for me with creating the work, one of the important things is to deal with the concept of line and form. So the string becomes another dimension of line. So do the branches, as well as being a connection to the narrative itself. So I'm now happy to turn it over to Heather Couch.
I'm Heather Couch. I'm an assistant professor of art in West Palm Beach at Palm Beach Atlantic University. And my primary focus is ceramics. I studied ceramics at Arizona State University, also in Tennessee. I'm originally from Tennessee. So here's an example of a ceramic piece that I've made. I began to be very interested in the marks that the maker leaves on a piece of clay as they're working. And so in my practice for many years now, I've let those fingerprints and those marks of the process remain as part of the surface of the ceramic object. Ceramics is one of the most timeless materials lasts throughout history, but I've been working in ways that make it a little bit more ephemeral. Things are hung from the ceiling, very fragile pieces, balanced precariously within wooden structures in ways that make it seem very much less permanent and have a real sense of temporality to them. And in fact, the installation is temporary, site-specific, built for each space. In this case, it was really fun to build in context with the other artists' work, and then with these high ceilings, and in a new way, these hanging pieces are interacting with the wooden structures. So that's been a lot of fun. I like the contrast of materials between the raw construction materials, the carefully made ceramics, and the sheep's wool, which is just raw, washed sheep's wool from a friend of mine that has sheep. And it has a nice warmth to it and a coziness that I think is echoed in the ceramic roundness of the pieces, kind of offset by the hardness of the ceramics and the jaggedness of the rusty nails and the wooden construction. So now I'll turn it back over to John LeJeune. Thank you, John.
you.